$400 here in Mexico for 1 kilo to up to $240,000 in Australia. There's a lot of money to be made.
The speed of organised crime at the moment, it's moving at the speed of electrons.
What's being moved through this tunnel, cocaine, methamphetamines, is highly likely that ends up on the streets of Australia.
We'll see traditional rivals at war come together, do a drug import.
I'm talking about outlaw motorcycle groups like the Comanchero, the Lone Wolves.
The evidence room may be modest, but the haul is extreme. $240 million of cocaine destined for Australian streets.
And what we actually have in front of us is a seizure from yesterday, which is 800 kilos of cocaine.
It's only a fraction of the 2 tonnes Colombian National Police found in containers at the port of Cartagena. Sporting bags, the drug runner's packaging of choice.
This bag we have here can contain 60 kilograms of cocaine, and in the current prices in Australia, that bag contains $7.2 million of cocaine.
Australians are paying some of the highest prices in the world for drugs. $300,000 a kilogram for cocaine, $250,000 for ice.
Es mucho.
That's crazy. That's a lot, because then that means that there is a really high profit. I don't think there is more lucrative market than that.
Especially when you consider the drugs cost just a few $100s to make.
$400 here in Mexico for 1 kilo to up to $240,000 in Australia. There's a lot of money to be made.
So much money, cartels have begun redirecting shipments.
In late 2022, we saw an upswing of intelligence saying that cocaine suppliers that traditionally targeted the North American and European market were going to start targeting Australia.
Police in South America are fighting to stop the drugs at the source. And today, they're showing us one of the jungle labs they've set up for training.
Fire in the hole!
In Mexico, the Navy escorts us to the next key part of the narcos matrix. Underground tunnels used to smuggle drugs and people into America.
We're about 80 metres from the Mexican border, but it just feels a long, long way away. There's some timber that's been put in here to try and reinforce the tunnel, but it's wet, it's mouldy. You can actually feel the moisture on the timber. I've no idea how someone would live down here.
Mexico's Sinaloa and CJNG cartels have their fingerprints all over these tunnels and the broader push into Australia.
Both cartels get it to Australia in many ways, whether it's via air freight, sea freight, fishing vessels, containerised cargo, you name it, they'll find a way.
They're working with Asia's Sam Gore cartel, the Ndrangheta Mafia, and Colombia's narco-terrorists. Australian bikies are also brokering billion-dollar deals with the narcos to flood our market.
And I'm talking about outlaw motorcycle groups like the Comanchero, the Lone Wolves, the Hells Angels.
We'll see traditional rivals at war come together, do a drug import, make their profits and go their separate way, and then the next day they're out trying to kill each other again.
They have absolutely no regard for the impact of their criminal actions. They're purely mercenary business people.
For the first time, we can reveal one of Australia's biggest drug money makers. Anthony Philip Sitar, our new most wanted.
He's been on the run since October 2011 for alleged drug importations into Australia.
That 2011 shipment arrived at Port Melbourne as Geelong was still celebrating its grand final win over Collingwood. 14 kilograms of cocaine and 133 kilograms of meth, hidden in a consignment of beer from Mexico. It is there the 43-year-old now lives with his Mexican wife and children.
Quite likely he's here brokering for methamphetamine trafficking and probably cocaine trafficking into Australia. Mexico's 128 million people, very easy to hide here. He'll make a mistake. We'll be there with the Mexican law enforcement to find him when he does make that mistake.
A mistake 2 years ago brought Australia's other alleged drug kingpin, Hakan Aik, unstuck. The former Comanchero had been promoting an encrypted app called Anom to the underworld, but it was exposed as a police setup. Even still, he controls a group known as the Aussie Cartel, smuggling $1.5 billion of drugs into Australia every year.
He's living the high life. He's fat and rich, sitting off the drug sales that are coming into Australia, killing our kids, and he cares for nothing. He cares about making money. He's just a greedy individual.
Australian and Turkish police are closing in on Aik and his associates. They recently arrested his schoolmate, Sydney bikie, Duax Nagar Kuru.
70% of our high-value targets actually operate offshore. We, law enforcement around the world, we're the biggest gang in the world. And only by working together are we going to have some sort of impact to make the environment hostile for organised criminals.
But it is unrelenting. Every day the cartels are devising new routes and new substances. In fact, intelligence shows the cartels are plotting to flood Australia with a wave of super strength ice and a deadly new drug 50 times more powerful than heroin.
And I would say to Australia, just be cautious about the substance because at some point fentanyl might reach the Australian market.
Fentanyl now causes the most drug deaths in America.
We're only talking about the size of a couple of grains of salt is enough to kill you. So yeah, I'm extremely concerned about what it could do to us.
The Sam Gore cartel, which flooded Australia with ice, is switching to industrial scale production of ketamine, an hallucinogenic party drug.
It's very clear that they're doing a strategy with ketamine that they also did with methamphetamine a few years ago, which is a supply push pattern where what they do is flood the streets to build the market and therefore build the demand for it.
And the Pacific is their new shipping playground. Papua New Guinea has become a stockpile and transit location for ice and cocaine.
Those small societies don't have the health systems, the policing systems to handle methamphetamine. So we're really concerned that these little countries that are being used for transshipment will become points through which, they're almost risk of state capture, infiltration of organised crime.
Another one of my concerns is the fact that we're actually starting to see some of these drugs on the streets in the Pacific, and the effect of that in terms of their communities could be enormous.